Hello, and welcome to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, the Outdoorsy Diva. Thanks for joining. Hello, adventurers. I'm so happy to be back with you this week. We have a really fun episode today. I'm really excited to bring this story to you. I've been sitting on it for just a little while, but it is finally time. We are going to talk about my recent trip to Yellowstone National Park. Yes, finally made it to one of the big national parks of our beautiful country here in the United States for my international listeners. And this was definitely a bucket list place for me. I did not go specifically to visit Yellowstone, but it happened as a side trip. I was just so close that there was no way that I could be all the way in Montana and not make it happen to visit this park. I was the little girl who used to watch, National Geographic specials and, PBS specials. I love Animal Planet. I love watching Planet Earth. So I've always been fascinated with those kinds of TV specials. And I vividly remember watching specials about Yellowstone and being so intrigued by how beautiful it looked and all the different types of wildlife. And it was just crazy to me that somewhere like that still existed right here in our country. So I was actually visiting Billings, Montana, and Yellowstone has a few entrances, which a lot of people don't know. So there is a north entrance, there's a northeast entrance, there's an east entrance, a south entrance, and a west entrance to Yellowstone. And so there were a couple of entrances that were within 2.5 to 3.5 hours drive from me that I could take to visit the park. And so I decided after the conference that I attended in Billings that I would rent a car and drive myself on down to Yellowstone. Here's the catch. Yellowstone is massive. It is a massive park. There's actually over 3,400 square miles of land encompasses the borders of Yellowstone National Park. So it's massive, it's huge, and this doesn't include its very close sister park just to the south, which is the Grand Teton National Park. So both of these were places that I've always wanted to see since I was a little girl, and I was so stoked that I was finally able to make this happen. My only regret, I didn't have a lot of time. As you guys know, I still work full time, still have my corporate full-time gig, and I was already pushing it because I started this job the end of July, which meant I'm on the low end of the totem pole as far as PTO. And they don't let you go negative at my company. And that meant that I was not going to have a lot of days to take. I already had to take an entire week for the conference. So adding additional time so that I could explore the park, I was really limited, and I just had to do whatever I was going to be able to do over the weekend after my conference. So the task of planning a 2-day itinerary in Yellowstone, honestly, it's pretty daunting. As I've said, it is a massive park, and it literally takes you hours, depending on what part of the park you're traveling from and to. And I was probably a little overly ambitious in what I thought I'd be able to do and see. I was hell-bent on getting down to Grand Teton. I just felt like I'm so close. I can't be this close and not also tick off another national park when they're right here together. And so in hindsight, I maybe should have foregone it, but it's okay. YOLO. But, yay me. That means 3 national parks for me this year in 2019, because I also visited the Smoky Mountain National Park and did some hiking over the Labor Day weekend in September. So Yellowstone, my initial impression and thoughts it took my breath away. It was beyond anything that I could have dreamed, thought, imagined. I know to some people, they might think that I'm over exaggerating or that this is hyperbole, but I think it largely depends on how you grew up and what you've seen and, what's normal to you. Me growing up in Dallas, Texas, mountains are one of those things that I'm still always in awe anytime I'm around them. It really doesn't take much to get me excited about mountains rising up out of the ground, just because growing up is not something that I ever saw. And Yellowstone, I didn't realize that it was so mountainous. I also wasn't prepared for the significant amount of geological activity. So obviously, I knew they had the geyser Old Faithful. I knew they had other geysers. Okay. I didn't understand that land is still alive, y'all. It's like, remember that movie, The Land Before Time? With the dinosaurs, one of my favorite movies as a kid. That's what it's like. It's like you walk around and there are vents of steam coming out of the ground. There's literal lakes and rivers that are boiling. There's many, I call them little baby volcanoes. They're really not baby volcanoes, but they are cones that have formed from the different minerals around some of the hot springs, and some of them make little volcanic looking dome cones. You have those everywhere. Everywhere you look, there's steam bubbling and there's boiling water coming out of the ground, and there's all kinds of different colored pools and springs of bright blue and emerald and green and turquoise and red and orange, and the land is alive. And I had no idea that the volcanic activity was still so prevalent today. I underestimated it. There's really no other way I can put it, and it just surpassed all of my expectations. And both days that I was there, it just blew my mind, the beauty that I saw. I had never seen so much beauty concentrated in one place this way. That was a first for me. The closest that could probably compare to it would be my trip to the Azores, and there's a lot of residual volcanic activity that has left behind some really amazing things, but not like this. Not like this. Furnace is pretty cool. That's the probably most active area where they just have cauldrons of boiling water and boiling tar. But it's all limited to a very small, confined area, and it's a largely populated and habitated area. Yellowstone, y'all, it's the wild. This is not a zoo. You are the visitor to the animals' territory. The animals are allowing you in to their space, and Mother Nature is allowing you into her space. You're the visitor as the human. That's how I felt. I really felt so small, and it kind of put me in my place of where I stand, when it comes to this food chain that is taking place every day out there in the wild. So with just 2 days, I decided that the best option would be for me to stay within the boundaries of the park. There are lots of places and little satellite towns just outside of the various entrances to the parks, but that was just going to be too much. If from any one of those, it was going to be a significant amount of driving time to get from outside to any place of significance within the park that I wanted to see, and I wanted to minimize the driving and spend more time actually inside of the park. If I was gonna have to do a lot of driving anyway, I at least wanted to be driving around inside the park, seeing stuff, not worried about getting in and out of the park. that was just going to be too much. I know other people who are at the same conference as I did, they did that, or they only came for like a day, but that's just not what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to really immerse myself fully in the whole national park experience. So Yellowstone has numerous campgrounds located at various points within the park. And I actually chose to stay at Canyon. So the Canyon campground is really centrally located. It's kind of to the north, and it is close to the access road that takes you basically to all the other parts of the park. Like if you think of a spoke on a wheel, basically from there I could take the road I needed to get to all the other various things that I wanted to see within the park. And not only was it centrally located, it's beautiful. It's kind of got a modern Western dude ranch kind of feel to it. So all of the they're actually towns within Yellowstone, which I didn't know that, and I thought that was pretty cool. They all kind of have their own look and feel to them. There's Old Faithful Inn, there's Mammoth Springs, there's Madison, and a few others. If you go to the National Park website, they do a really good job of listing them all, and they will also be in my upcoming blog post when I share this 2-day itinerary. But in any case, I didn't realize they were actual little towns. So you have the campgrounds, you had actual accommodations like hotels and inns. They also had a general store, had a post office, it had a couple of restaurants, it had an outpost with gear. So it really was like very civilized right there in that area. The campground also had showers, as well as, bathrooms and running water, showers with hot water, all that kind of stuff. So you had all of your creature comforts that you needed, whether you chose to camp or to stay in an actual hotel. The hotels, I'm not gonna lie, this I thought would be off season. It's kind of like the last hurrah before the park really scales back for winter. But to my surprise, it was actually still pretty expensive. I didn't see anything for less than $200+ a night, and that's just wasn't in my budget for this particular trip to spend that much. So I opted to car camp instead. Originally I was going to actually camp. I was all in, y'all. I was gonna be like super outdoorsy diva, and I was gonna be so proud of myself because I was gonna camp like a big girl. But number one, I was flying and trying to pack everything that you need for a camping trip honestly is a bit of a challenge. And remember, I wasn't going specifically to visit Yellowstone. I also had to pack for a week's worth of conference and other excursions that were happening as part of that beforehand. And so I was not able to really pack and plan to tent camp this time around. Also, the weather was changing, and so I knew during that weekend I would be there. When I checked the weather, it indicated that there was going to be a cold front and it was going to be in the 30s at night. No. That was no bueno. I have camped when the temperature was in the 40s before. That was actually my very first tent camping experience, and honestly it almost ruined it for me to the point where I was not sure if I would ever tent camp again. I don't like being cold, and that cold chilled me to my bones, y'all. The earth is hard, cold, and unforgiving, and we were not prepared for that kind of cold, and I knew that I would not be able to pack what I would need to be even remotely comfortable sleeping in a tent in that kind of weather. So it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't, and you know, you have to make that determination. I'm not out here trying to impress anybody, and you have to do what's comfortable for you and what makes the most sense. So for me, car camping made the most sense. I was actually in a Jeep Grand Cherokee. It was quite spacious, quite roomy. It also had the panoramic moonroof going on, so I had that action from front to back where I could look up and see the night sky. So I really enjoyed that. You know, I let the seats all down, and I packed plenty of blankets, and I also packed my thermal lounge-ons, the ones that I bought the first time that I went skiing, so I knew that those would keep me warm and dry. And the benefit to camping in the car is that, you know, I was able to run the heat, get the temperature up to a nice toasty temperature, and then I was pretty much good to go. I only woke up once in the middle of the night and felt a little bit of a chill, and so I just got up and turned the truck on for a little bit, warmed back up, turned it back off, easy breezy. And I was honestly comfortable sleeping like that in the back of the SUV. Now, I will admit that I had a serious phobia about grizzly bears. I don't know the first thing about, you know, being in bear country, because down here where I am in Florida, I don't have that problem. Even when we went to the Smokies, you know, I knew there were black bears. They just didn't intimidate me the same way as grizzlies. So I was really cautious and tried to be prepared as far as being safe. And where I was not an area known to be frequented by grizzly bears, because there are some of the campgrounds where they told you straight up, you know, this is heavy grizzly country. And so when I saw that little note, I crossed that off the list. I was like, nope, not for me. But obviously it's not a zoo, and the bears can go wherever they would like to go. All the campgrounds do come with a bear box, and so, you know, they have the nice, I'm not sure what it's made of, if it's steel or what it is, but it's made and equipped in a way that the bears aren't able to open it or destroy it and get into it to get your food. And I also think it limits the smell as well, so that it doesn't attract them to your campground. I wasn't doing any type of serious cooking or anything like that, because again, you know, with me traveling and flying in, I didn't have all those kinds of supplies. So I just bought stuff when I needed to buy stuff from the restaurant and called it a day. But at night, I did wake up and I needed to go to the bathroom. Oh, the anguish, y'all. I didn't know what to do. Yes, there were other campers around me, but I got up in the middle of the night and I didn't see anybody. I didn't see any flashlights. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? I really got to go. And I'm looking outside, and the restroom was probably maybe, I don't know. I'm not good at distance. I guess if we had to guess, 30, 40 yards away from me. It wasn't far at all. And it was lit. It had lights around it, but to get to it and from where I was parked, oh man, it was like, I was terrified. I was terrified of, you know, what if the other campers weren't careful and somebody did leave something out that had attracted a bear, and I step out here in the dark and I get attacked or mauled by a grizzly bear. So I was all in my head. Complete paranoia took over, and I sat there in anguish with an angry bladder for like a good 20 minutes with my flashlight, debating, am I gonna go and try to go to the bathroom, or am I gonna sit here in misery? And I chose misery. Laugh if you want. Yeah, call me a punk. I couldn't do it. I just could not bring myself to open that door and walk to the bathroom by myself. So when you travel by yourself, sometimes it happens and your fear gets the best of you. But what's most important is that you feel safe. I did have a large cup from earlier, and eventually it was just too painful. And yeah, I just had to do what I had to do in the truck and then take care of it in the morning. So hey, that's that. No shame in my game. I'm always going to keep it real with you, but loved the campground. It was in a forest of pine trees, and they just swayed in the breeze, and the smell was amazing. It was like having just nature's potpourri. It was wonderful. So highly recommend the campground. It's a beautiful campground. I would love to go back, at a different time of year where I could, actually tent camp. I actually think it would have been quite pleasant and quite nice. And then I'd also really like to see what it would be like to stay in one of the inns too, because as I said, they looked really, really nice, especially the ones at Canyon seem to be pretty modern and recently updated. Enough about the accommodations, but what did I see? Everything. I saw deer. I saw some other animal. It looked like an antelope, but I don't know what it was. And no one has been able to tell me what it was. I saw elk for the first time. I saw the female elk. It was really cool. I was at Mammoth Springs, and it's this, it's a spring, and it's like got terraces to it, right? It looks like a melting ice cream cake is what it looks like to me, and it's tiered like a wedding cake. And so the elk were laying out on the different tiers, like going up the side, and it's white, but it's not snow, but it looks like snow in my pictures. Oh my God, they're precious. They look really, really cool. You can actually see one of those pictures on my Instagram of one of the female elk just out there chilling. And then I also saw quite a few of the bucks. Are they bucks? Are they bulls? I don't know. Forgive me. But I saw the male elk, the guys with the big, big, big antlers. Yeah, those. I actually saw one that I learned something new, guys. I saw a 9-point bull. I believe that's the right term, which means if you count all of his little pointy things, he had 9 of them. So that meant he was actually a good age, but he was massive. These animals are huge, and as I told you, the different areas are like little towns. And so when I was in Mammoth, I was just kind of walking and exploring and checking out where they have some homes where some of the rangers stay. It's like a cute little neighborhood. And there was a bull just laying there like in the lawn. Like, no big deal. And then there was a female, literally she was on someone's porch. Like if they had walked out of the door, she would have been right there and they would have walked right into her. Like, it's cool, but also scary at the same time, because you have to give these animals their just due respect, because again, they're wild. And so when I saw the male, I made an about face and I was like, you got it, buddy. I just tried to take, pictures with that zoom as best I could, but I wasn't going to get anywhere near him at all. I also saw so many bison. Oh my goodness, there's so many bison. Like, y'all, they have bison like you see squirrels. Honestly, they're that abundant and thriving. And what a testament to our park rangers and our national park system that it works, because I know at one point those numbers were dwindling, but no more. The bison are thriving, and they are literally everywhere. Like, you see them in Lamar Valley is famous for them. Hayden Valley is another one. It's a good place for bison watching, but they're everywhere. They're places you didn't even expect them to be. I even saw one along Yellowstone Lake. He was right there along the shore, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing over here all by your lonesome? But he was having him a little snack, found him some grass, and he was chilling along the lake. I also saw bald eagles in the wild for, I've seen them in Florida once, but there's a nest that's along a kayak paddle that I like to do, but I've never seen them flying. I've only seen them in the nest, and it was from really far away. But these eagles were soaring and swooping, and I could actually see that they were bald eagles. I could see their white heads and the gold beaks from where I was standing. It was amazing to watch them just in their element. They are such gorgeous birds. I didn't see any bear. A friend of mine, she did see one. She said he scurried into the street and then back up into the woods. And then I had an encounter, y'all. So it was harvest moon. And I knew the moon was going to be amazing. And I'm like, I got to get, some amazing night shots while I'm here. So I had this bright idea that, it'd be really cool to see the moon rise over the mountains over Yellowstone Lake. So I found a spot that was going to be, facing due east where the moon would be rising. And I was like, I'm going to park and set up my camera and I'm going to catch the moon rising and get these amazing pictures. So I had my photographer hat on. That happens to me a lot when I travel. I get these really grandiose ideas for photos. Sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. So I found my spot and I parked and waited till dusk, and it was a beautiful sky with the sun rising behind me. Took some pictures of that, got back in the car, and started getting set up and everything because I saw a little glimpse of light just in the distance. It wasn't fully dark yet, but it was dusk and I could see a little glimpse of light coming from behind the mountains in the distance. So I set up the tripod and got out of the truck. Hear me, completely out of the truck. Got the tripod in front of the truck. And, I'm setting up, shooting test shots and everything, right? And out of the corner of my eye, I kind of thought I saw something like in my peripheral vision run across the street. But it was like behind me. But again, like I said, I've seen bison and deer like everywhere and elk. So I thought that it was just like something small or like a deer or something, right? And paying any attention. So I went on taking pictures, and then I saw this tall grass to my right that was between me and the lake shore kind of moving and swaying. And I was like, And then I saw eyes, and I saw pointy ears, and I saw fur. And then I transported myself back into the Jeep. Instantly, like you would think that I teleported. I don't even remember opening the door handle, y'all. Like it was serious. I freaked out because I thought it was a wolf. I just knew it was a wolf. I was like, oh my God, I'm out here. I'm by myself. It's a wolf. I'm gonna get eaten. Like, what the heck? So I hightailed it back into the Jeep to see, I'm watching from inside to see what passes by, y'all. It turned out to be a coyote. So he was hunting some small animal because I saw him like pounce, and then he passed by the truck and he just went trotting along back on down the lake shore, minding his business. I did get a couple of quick pictures of him. He was going so fast and I was honestly freaked out. So they're not the best of pictures and I probably won't post them, but I do have proof of what I saw. You talk about terrifying. And again, just a reminder that when it comes to the food chain, I'm a snack, okay? A snack. So I decided I would turn the truck the other way, and that way I could just open the driver's side door, set the tripod up, and not have to actually expose my back and put my whole person outside of the truck and leave me exposed. So lesson learned. Definitely have to be careful because it's the wild and you just don't know what could happen. But it was really neat to see. I have to say, I did see Old Faithful do her thing. She's the most reliable of the geysers. I had no idea there were so many. I mean, there's lots of geysers. Yellowstone actually has the most geysers of any one place in the world. And I didn't do any extensive research to visit the others because it was just so much to see. So I did make it to see Old Faithful and I got to see it erupt, and that was really, really cool. And I've got some great video footage that I'll be sharing for people to see. I'm sure there's tons of it out there if you go out there, but it's not mine. So I'm still going to share it. Just so you don't know that I was there. It was pretty special. I did get to do a boat cruise along Yellowstone Lake. That was pretty awesome. It's a vast lake, and at some points it's over 400 feet deep, and there are even thermal vents in some places down at the bottom of that lake with, organisms and things that don't even exist anywhere else. How cool is that? Just like they have those thermal vents in the ocean, you've got thermal vents like that within Yellowstone Lake. So it was a really nice way to see the park from a different vantage point. I didn't see any wildlife, but it was a nice ride, a nice way to learn some other history and facts about the park. So I do recommend the boat ride if you have time. I did get to see the infamous Yellowstone Hotel. It's the first hotel that they had, and I did go inside and have a little bit of dinner. So that was a nice way to spend an evening. I did make the drive down to Grand Teton. It took so much time. I think it took me 2 hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I want to say it was 2 hours south of the lake. So I was pushing it. I was. But hey, YOLO, you gotta do what you gotta do. I didn't see any wildlife because I was told that the moose really frequent Grand Tetons a lot, but I didn't see any. But I did see those amazing mountains and got some good photos. I didn't spend a lot of time or go too deep into the park just because I was so pressed for time. And so that's what I regret, because even though I made it to the park, I kind of want to go back because I know there's so much in that park that I didn't see. But I'm glad that I went and I saw it, and I do have some pretty awesome pictures of those mountains. The Yellowstone Falls, oh my goodness, breathtaking. Absolutely amazing. It's so much water that moves through those falls. It's probably one of the most concentrated in terms of flow that I've seen within the United States. I actually got up early in the morning. This was the morning after my coyote run-in, so the moon was still up. So I watched the moon set over the waterfalls. And then you have the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, which I didn't know there was a Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, but there is. It's beautiful. And to my left, you had the sun rising up over the canyon. And so talk about just visually amazing. It brought me to tears. It was so beautiful. It actually brought me to tears to watch the sun rising and the moon setting, just in that really powerful setting. It just did something to me. It was what I call one of my God moments, where you're just really reminded of the beauty and the awe of this world that we live in. Totally worth getting up at 6 in the morning in 30-degree weather to go and do that photo shoot of the falls at that time. I wanted to be alone at the lookout point, and lo and behold, I got there and there were already other people there. I guess they had the same bright idea that I did, but the positive is I had somebody to take my pictures and I didn't have to fool with the timer and the tripod and all of that. So it all worked out. What else? I also saw Gibbons Falls. Gibbons Falls was really cool. Really cool flow. I saw Tower Falls, Lamar Falls, and then there's tons of other waterfalls that I did not see. I saw the infamous Grand Prismatic Spring, which is this beautiful jewel-colored large spring. The morning that I went, though, it was 30-something degrees in the morning, so that meant hot water was producing so much steam off the top. So a lot of the hot springs that I saw that day, all of my pictures, they just looked like smoking lakes because it was so thick. The steam was so thick coming off of those springs just because the air was cold and the springs are so very hot. But still beautiful nonetheless, and got some really cool pictures. I did do one tiny hike Not alone, very trafficked, lots of people. I had this as a poll question on my Facebook page about should I go for a hike or was it too dangerous because of the grizzlies? And obviously hiking alone in bear country and grizzly country is not smart, not safe, not a good idea. So I was only going to do it if I was going to be able to be, with people, around people, and in a manner that I felt safe. So I did one small one. Now you have to remember Yellowstone is way high above elevation. The campground I stayed at was, I believe, 7,800 feet of elevation. There are some points that are even higher than that. So I am asthmatic. It is seasonal. It is allergy triggered. And unfortunately for me, September is super high allergy season, which meant I was also a bit symptomatic. So I was, I had a little bit of wheezing. I had to use my inhaler. So I just took it easy, took my time, didn't push myself. I didn't push my limits. And so I didn't do anything terribly strenuous this time around. The altitude definitely affected me. I could feel it just a little slower, a little more tired. So I didn't want to push my luck too much because, there's no need to. As long as I got to see what I wanted to see, again, it was nothing to prove. So I just took my time. Thing is just all throughout the park, there's pull-offs and places to, get out of your car, see something, and you just don't know what you're going to see. There's lookout points. There's just so much to see. It was an amazing, amazing visit. I don't know how many pictures. I took so many pictures, but I really enjoyed myself. I want to go back. I felt rushed. There is a place where you are allowed to swim, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to make that. I just ran out of time. So I was really disappointed that I didn't get to do that. But I would love to go back because there's just so much to see. And I don't feel like I saw everything. Now, on my way out, I didn't leave the same way I came. So I came through the Gardner entrance, to the north. To exit, I went out of that northeast entrance, which takes you through the Cook, I believe it's called the Cook City Silver Gate is that other exit, because that was going to put me closer to Billings to get to the airport. The next morning, I was going to stay in Red Lodge, which is just on the other side of the mountain range. So to get through there, I had to pass through Lamar Valley. Beautiful scenic drive. I wish I had had more time. I was really, really determined to make sure I got off those mountains before dark. I did not want to be on those mountain pass roads at dark. I know the weather can change at any time. They're not lit. I just wanted to be sure that I was being as safe as possible. So overall, I think Yellowstone National Park is a great destination. I will say, being a Black visitor, I saw maybe 2 other Black people there. And then I know for a fact of 3 other Black people who went during that weekend because they also attended the conference with me. But primarily, there wasn't a lot of diversity in the visitors. Now, there were quite a bit of foreign tourists who were visiting, quite a lot of Asian people and Indian people that I saw visiting. But as far as Black tourists, African Americans, really not there. And, hopefully that's something that will continue to improve, continue to change. And I just hope that, by people seeing my pictures, hearing my experiences, that it will change the way that we think about vacation, that we think about a getaway. I honestly think that this is almost a pilgrimage for us as well. This land belongs to all of us. And I think it's just so important that we be intentional about frequenting these spaces and be intentional about introducing it to the next generation. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing all about my Yellowstone visit, and I'd love to hear about yours. If you've been, what some of your favorite spots are, or some other national parks that you loved that I should be adding to my list. So love to hear your feedback. Send me an email to podcast@outdoorsydiva.com. And as always, I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Be sure to check out Misadventures of an Outdoorsy Diva blog on outdoorsydiva.com. You can also keep up with me and my adventures, so check out all of my social channels. Find Outdoorsy Diva on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.